All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome to the channel. So if you've never been to this channel before, I challenge you to watch this video and tell me that you've ever watched an MMA analysis video that does it like me. I'm not talking, don't watch the first 5 minutes, watch the whole thing. I know it's long, but guess what? You might find yourself like, damn, I just found my new favorite MMA channel. Highly likely. So give it a run and you see, because I'm gonna have some insight for you guys that you won't see anywhere else. So let's do this thing, son. Guess what I'm gonna talk about today? One guess. I'll give you guys one guess, because if you get it wrong, that's embarrassing, and you guys don't watch this channel very much. We're gonna talk about Khabib and Conor, okay? Because I wanna talk about the new footage of Conor training in UFC 257. I wanna talk about his mindset from the interview in the Josh Thompson and John McCarthy video. And I wanna talk about what his interviews in the Countdown video, because he looks completely transformed. I mean, literally, like, transformed as a human being, at least from what I can tell. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I also want to talk about this Khabib announcement, because I've thought a lot about this, obviously, since the announcement Dana made on Saturday, which, as a recap, was Khabib is going to see what happens on Saturday and see if anyone does anything spectacular. Then he'll make a decision, okay? So if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Tell your friends. Forward the video around. Say, hey, look at the insights this guy's dropping. He's just basically making hypotheses all the time. He's speculating. So, you wouldn't know until you started watching his videos all the time that he's almost always right. Oh, so it's like being a member of QAnon. Except what I say actually ends up coming true. So it'd be like very similar to that. QAnon predicts all this stuff. None of it ends up being correct. But I predict stuff and it all ends up being correct. So look at that. And by the way, I don't know anything about QAnon. I'm just saying things. So if you're a member of QAnon, I apologize. I don't have any idea. You guys have sent me some crazy stuff recently that I know for sure wasn't true, but that's neither here nor there, okay? So anywho, if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. I think I already said that. All right, so let's do this. Let's start with the Khabib announcement, because I talked a lot about this in previous videos, and I think that I actually nailed it in one of my other videos, and now we're watching it unfold exactly as what I said. A couple things, actually, okay? So I mentioned it in the announcement video, like when they first announced it, and I put that video up really, really quickly, 4-minute video. Oh, this is what he said. And I said, that I had actually predicted that if Conor won by spectacular knockout, it was very different than if he won, by some sloppy decision. And obviously that plays into it. But here's the other thing that I didn't think of at the time that I had also talked about in previous videos. I said that when Dana told the public that we would know what was going on with Khabib right after his conversation, I questioned that. I was like, that doesn't even make sense. Why would he just come out and say it, right? Why would he just come out? First of all, why would he just come out and say it? Because you're blowing an opportunity to make this gigantic announcement after Conor wins, if he wins, especially given that if Dustin wins, then Khabib's not going to fight Dustin. And so the whole point of, you're going to know right after that meeting doesn't even make sense, because the pretense for Khabib to fight Conor is yet to be determined, right? So I said that. I questioned Dana saying that. And normally I never question Dana. He's basically my hero in business. And as an entrepreneur and just a dude that has done everything right, in my opinion, as it relates to putting his passion in his forefront of everything he does and then building the most incredible organization ever. Okay, so, but yeah, I mean, when he said that, I was like, I don't think that is going to end up being true, even if Khabib says that he'll fight Conor if he wins, because what are you going to say? You're like, okay, yeah, so Khabib's going to fight Conor if he wins, but if Dustin wins, he's not going to fight Dustin. I mean, that doesn't even make any sense. And it also takes away your ability to make a grand announcement assuming that Conor does win. So I do think that's what's going on. I think that Khabib has basically given Dana tacit agreement that if Conor wins in spectacular fashion, that he'll fight him. But that if Conor doesn't win in spectacular fashion and Michael Chandler wins in spectacular fashion, then he'll fight him. So basically, Khabib said he will fight again, assuming someone gives him a reason to fight, right? So I think this whole kind of like, well, he's accomplished everything he wanted to in the sport, that's misdirection. I think that the reality is that Khabib's going to fight again. I mean, he's going to fight again. And there are certain things that just need to fall into place that are going to determine who he fights. So like if Michael Chandler does nothing, and they slappy decision, no one impressive, and that same thing happens in the Conor fight and Dustin wins, then maybe he fights Oliveira. Because he mentioned Oliveira specifically. So what is he saying? right? He literally mentioned Oliveira as an interesting fight. Okay, so I'm interested in Oliveira fight, but let's see if something spectacular happens on Saturday. Translation, I'm going to fight a 30th time regardless. That's what I'm hearing, right? Because he says, let's see if someone does anything spectacular on Saturday, but then even if they don't, he already left the door open for Oliveira. Why would he bring that up? Why would Dana bring that up if Khabib had not already committed that he's going to fight again? What's the point of bringing up Oliveira, right? So that is my hypothesis, is that Khabib's fighting again, either way. I actually will say pretty confidently, I don't think he's going to retire without the 30th fight because of exactly what I just laid out, okay? So there's that. That's the end of the Khabib portion of this video, aside from as I talk about Conor when he was fighting Khabib, because now I'm going to move into this Conor thing, all right? So let's talk about how Conor looked in this UFC 257 countdown video and the Josh Thompson interview, because he looks like a person who has done tremendous internal work. Like he seems like a transformed person. He said nothing but positive things, in the interview with Josh Thompson and John McCarthy. Nothing. Everything he said was positive. I mean, like he had nothing negative to say about anybody. And, aside from he's obviously trying to bait Khabib into the fight, but even the way he's talking about that is not emotionally charged. He's very calm as he's talking about it. He literally looks like a Buddhist monk. And simultaneously, he's still this exact same guy. He's just as confident. He's making claims that are just as, grand. And anybody who doubts him shouldn't, because he's come through every time when he's been very, very confident like this. So when I look at him and I look at Dustin as an opponent, by the way, I'm speaking about Dustin, not about Khabib, because Khabib has lived in this zone forever, is kind of my take on it. But when he's going in against Dustin, I mean, listen, like, put yourself in Dustin's position. Have you seen an interview yet where they have not asked him about how Conor beat him mentally in the first fight and then knocked him out? It's all they talk about, every single interview. So Dustin, look like Conor really got in your head before he put a knuckle in the side of your temple and knocked you unconscious. Can you talk about that? And what's going to be different this time? I mean, it's like law of attraction 101 is like, whatever you visualize is what's going to happen. That's why Conor, one of the best things I heard in like the countdown and one of his interviews was he talked about how he has recreated fighting in the UFC in every way in his gym, right? Like where they create literally down to every detail. The canvas is down to every detail. The atmosphere is down to so he mimics coming out and fighting in the UFC in his gym twice a week. Okay, so that when he actually goes and fights in the UFC, there's nothing different about it. It's just another day. He's done it twice a week for a year, and he wins every time. So it's just another event, just like the last 50. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of the point that I'm making. The law of attraction, like what you visualize ends up being. And if you say like, oh man, like if you're trying to manifest success, right? You think about the specific success that you want. You think about a specific job that you want. You think about the people that need to call you for that. And you make yourself believe that they're going to call, and you throw optimism towards it versus, I don't want to go broke. I'm not going to be broke. I'm never going to be broke again. I'm never, ever, ever going to be broke like that again. What you're actually saying is broke, broke, broke. You're thinking about what it feels like to be broke versus visualizing the success that you're going to have. And like, I'm not like, this may sound woo-woo to people. I mean, obviously you do the work also. I mean, do I look like a person that thinks that you can manifest a winning lottery ticket? You do the work also, but your mental outlook and the optimism that you throw towards a thing has an impact on whether it happens or not. I believe that 100% because I have seen it in my life. And I'll give you a perfect example. I've played so many hours of blackjack that you would think that I was a degenerate if I could somehow pull out of the universe the number of hours I've sat at blackjack tables playing. You would just be like, that doesn't even seem possible, right? Or playing poker, same thing. And here's the deal: when someone gets angry, okay, like when someone gets mad, someone's been losing for a while and they get mad, right? No matter what. Okay, when they make that mad bet, I have probably seen thousands of that. Like literally, I've probably seen this 1,000 times where a person pushes their money in mad, right? Like where they've lost 10 hands in a row and they're mad and they push all their money in because they're mad and you can see it. Okay, I always pull my money off the table every time in that time because without fail, 100% of the time. No matter what they get dealt, they lose. Every single time. To the point where it's impossible that it's a coincidence. Literally, I've seen it that many times. They never win. They absolutely never, ever win. Never. Okay? Never. This is not hyperbolic. They never win. Okay? Push it in mad. No, they could get dealt a 20. The dealer's going to deal themselves blackjack. It's like magic. It's unbelievable how consistent it is. It doesn't even make sense unless the energy that you throw at the world does affect what happens around you. I believe it. Okay. Do I look like a hippie granola person? No, this is based on my life experience. I've witnessed it too much for it not to be real. Okay. And so what I'm saying is this is a long way of saying that Conor is visualizing winning. And every time they ask him a question, it's I'm going to take him out in 60 seconds. You never hear. And with Dustin, they're like, so last time he knocked you out, what's going to be different? And he's there, and it's not his fault, but they're forcing him to talk about it. Talk about when he knocked you out. Talk about what's going to be different this time. What's he thinking about? Last time I was really nervous. Last time I was this, so I won't be that this time. But what you're actually saying is you're thinking about how you felt last time. It is impossible for him to go in there and not be thinking about that. They're making him talk about it too much. I believe that. I don't necessarily, I did an entire video about how beating someone mentally is not super real and that he's going to lose from skills. And I absolutely agree with that. But there is, of course, a mental side to the sport. And there's just no way that Dustin's going in there optimally, given that they're forcing him to talk about this over and 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 over, So, yeah, there's that. And again, you compare the Conor who came in and fought Khabib. You look at the press conference between him and Khabib. He looks like a different person. Anybody who's a Conor fan, like me, Mixed Molly, everyone agrees on this. That there was something just off about him when he was going to fight Khabib. He was just off. He wasn't charismatic. He wasn't funny. He wasn't even when he's being brash and obnoxious, you can tell he's he has a light about him, like an aura of confidence and whatever. He was dark and angry and just gross when he was, leading up to the Khabib fight. And I think some of it had to do with how cool and collected Khabib was and just wasn't getting rattled at all. But I think that, he's basically acknowledged that he was drinking and, doing blow and stuff like that. You can't do that stuff and have your light stay on. This is certainly not a thing that I'm speculating about. You just can't do it. You can't do it. You cannot be your full self, the brightest version of yourself. You can't be this clever, charismatic, awesome person if you're drinking and doing blow. The two things are mutually exclusive. And Conor's clearly now dead sober. And in addition to that, what he looks like to me is he has because he's the best video Mixed Molly ever did is Fire and Ice, right? Between Conor and Khabib. And he says, Conor is fire, Khabib is ice. And it's 100% true. Khabib is the just brick of ice that you can't rattle, you can't break. He's ice cold. And Conor is absolutely built out of fire. He's a ball of passion, right? And what it looks like to me is Conor has learned how to contain his fire, right? And then let it out when he wants to. He is under control, and not in a way where he's diminished. He's containing it, right? That is what I see when I look at him in these countdown videos. Is I'm telling you, he's going. I've never been more confident in picking a fight than I am picking Conor over Dustin. I really am. Now, when it comes to the Khabib fight, that is a very interesting fight now. Very, very. We'll see. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's just have him, fight Dustin first. But just in terms of his mindset, it becomes very, very interesting because, especially in a retrospective, analysis, if you're going in against Khabib, you have, at your best, at their absolute sharpest, the best, the most they've ever trained, the sharpest they've ever been mentally, the best possible you're going in against the most dominant 155-pound fighter of all time. It's not going to be enough for anyone so far. It's not going to be enough for anyone. There's not a single person that on their best day would have beat Khabib. But Conor is the only person where on his absolute most focused, incredible day, he might be able to challenge Khabib. Maybe. He's still a stylistic nightmare for Conor. And if I had to pick, even this new Zen Buddha Conor, it would be impossible for me to pick against Khabib, and I'll cry regardless of who loses. Straight up. I mean, I'll say that right now, that Khabib has gone from, a person whose skills I respected to my other favorite fighter. And I will absolutely throw a huge thank you and gratitude at Mix Molly for that, because Mix Molly did such incredible documentary work on him that, like, you feel like, or I feel like I know him. Like, I feel like I know him, and I feel like I understand him, just like I did with Conor. Conor was more, I can look, Conor's more of an open book, and I have a lot more in common with Conor from a personality perspective. But like I've told you guys a million times, I get along real well with people from Eastern Europe, man. I love that culture. And Khabib is like the walking embodiment of Eastern European perfection. He's just a savage, man. So when that fight happens, because I still am in a position where I feel confident saying when that fight happens, I'm going to be so excited and equally nervous, because I don't want to see either of them lose ever. And the idea of Conor losing to him again would be hard, but the idea of Khabib losing on his 30th fight would be worse. And I just because I know how much it would really hurt Khabib, like, emotionally. Like, it would like like Conor's won. I've talked about this before, but Conor's a billionaire now, in case you guys did not get to that part of the interview. Conor's a billionaire. Okay, his whiskey business is worth like $2 billion. Okay, he bought $1 million watch. You know what? Let me talk about that too. But hang on, let me finish that. Sorry. Conor's won. Okay, Conor could lose every other fight for the rest of his career. He's won. He's won at life. The end. Khabib never set out to be a billionaire. Khabib never set out, he's going to be successful in business forever also. But that's not what his goal was, right? His goal, it was part of his goal, but his goal was about his legacy as a fighter, and not like just to get the accolades like Conor. The reason why Conor has fought the way he has, right? The reason why he's jumped around, where he won the title at 145, then he went up to 155, then he started dabbling 170, or, not in that order, then he went to Mayweather, then he came back. The reason for that is because Conor's vision for his ideal self was not aligned to what Khabib's was, which was legend, legacy, beat every single challenger at a weight class, be the best of all time from that weight class, and be done with it. Conor's was more accolades, win other things. Like, it was a different vision, and Conor's already attained that vision. So it doesn't matter if he loses. Khabib, it matters. If he loses the second fight to Conor, now, I will say this. I can't say that I'm going to root for Khabib necessarily, because if Conor wins, then we get to see a third fight. So there's that, right? Like I said, it's going to be impossible for me to choose. I'll just tell you that right now. I can't root against either of them. I'm not capable of rooting against either of them. But yeah, let me talk real quick also now. This is a long, but I can feel when a video is good. This is going to be a good video. You guys are going to like it. But I want to talk about Conor buying that $1 million watch, okay? So I think, first of all, that is a bananas watch. Now, I'm a watch guy, okay? And, if someone was like, hey, have you ever seen $1 million watch? I would have said, yeah. And I'd be talking about like a Patek Philippe that was $1 million. And if you really looked at it and you held it next to a watch that was 50,000, actually, if someone who doesn't know watches and you held it next to a watch that was 15,000, I'm not sure if you'd be like someone who knew nothing about watches, knew nothing about brands, would be able to pick which one's $1 million. Like Patek Philippe, Pateks are crafted by hand, incredible timepieces that are beautiful. But you can't, just from a looking at it perspective, it's not like, it's expensive and handmade because it's a Patek, right? There's nothing like visual about it where you go, wow, that's probably that watch is probably $250,000. But the $1 million watch Conor got, that's the first $1 million watch I've ever seen that wasn't just completely iced out diamond ridiculous, that I was like, oh, that's a piece of art. I would have guessed that was like $1 million. It's an incredible timepiece. But I don't think Conor just bought it for that reason, because if Conor was like Floyd Mayweather, where he's just posting every single, big purchase that he makes, then he'd be doing that the rest of his life, right? Like, he would do that a lot more often. He doesn't really do that. He's not like a flash guy. Like, what other pictures has he ever taken of a watch that he's bought, right? I think he did this as psychological warfare going into Fight Island, right? Like, Conor's the most competitive, hyper-competitive person in the world, right? if he's 2 days before he's about to walk into Fight Island with the rest of the entire MMA community, I mean, the ones that are going to be there, like, which is a lot of people. And he's like, anybody who's unclear on who the fucking man is, I'm going to buy a watch for $1.1 million. I'm going to put it on Instagram so all you guys know that 2 days before I step into Fight Island, and everybody has to look at me and go, damn, this guy's balling like that. He bought $1 million watch. Because there are guys who make money in the UFC now. You think that Masvidal's buying $1 million watch? No. Okay. Billionaires buy $1 million watches. Okay. Like Conor's on a whole. Conor might be richer than. Well, no. Him and Dana. I don't know how much of Proper 12 Conor owns, but Dana's probably a billionaire now too. Because I think he owns. I think he made $500 million when they sold UFC, and then he was given another 5 to 7% of the new company, which I believe is worth 8 to 9 billion. So, yeah, I mean, just right there, he's almost worth $1 billion. Just right there, and who knows all the other investments that he's made. So yeah, him and Conor are both billionaires. You know, so you got 2 billionaires on the island that are involved in UFC. Conor and Dana White. Okay, and one of them is fighting this week. So, and he bought a watch for $1.1 million going in. Like that's a power move going into Fight Island. And I don't mean it. And this is the thing I want to make very clear. I'm not talking about like he wants to be flashy and be like, ha ha. It's a power move. Okay. He's competing against these guys. He's competing against them in the octagon. He's competing against them outside the octagon. That's a power move right there. Okay. You're going to be spending 2 weeks with me. Make sure you remember who's got dough to spend $1.1 million on something I'm going to wear on my fucking wrist. Okay? That's how much I'm beating you guys by. By a $1.1 million watch that I'm going to throw into a collection of lots of other very expensive watches that none of you motherfuckers can afford. It's not about being flashy like Floyd. It's not like being like Floyd is childish, man. You know, like Floyd, I look at how Floyd flashes like things that he buys and I'm like, this shit's childish, man. This is a childlike thing to do. And with Conor, because, I mean, he just doesn't normally do that. That's how I know the watch is a fucking power move. It's a power, like that's gangster, okay? The way I look at the world, the way I look at business, like anybody who was always like, you know, as a matter of fact, I was talking to Sammy the Bull about this. So, I spent New Year's Eve with Sammy the Bull and his whole family. And he and I were talking and I was like, when I think about money and business, I always think about what motivates a person to make money because it's different for people. Like some people, it's about flashing, flossing, like being, and for Floyd, that's what it's about. It's about flossing on people, whatever. For me, it's about competition, like Conor. It's just competition, a competition that I'm losing at this point that I almost won. Major League Fantasy gets on television. I would have been DraftKings. It's worth $15 billion now. That would have happened had I got the TV show. Nonetheless, that's how I view money. It's just a competition. I don't give a shit about like buying a million things. I don't care about that. It's a scorecard, right? You versus other people playing the same game. And that's how Conor is. And with Sammy, I told him, I'm like, with you, I bet it's about control. Because the more money you have, the more you can control your environment and the people around you. And he agreed with that for sure. He's like, that's correct. I'm a control freak, But anyway, it's neither here nor there. Conor, it's a power move. It's a competition thing. So anyway, if Conor loses this fight, I will be so shocked that I don't even know what I might not even consider myself an expert in the sport anymore. If Conor loses this fight, I will think that I may not even deserve to have this channel. So we'll see how that goes. Conor loses, that's seriously where I'll be at. I'll come on here and just be like, I don't know anything anymore. Like, all the insights that I threw at you guys, probably all fucking nonsense. I probably got lucky a couple times, but I don't know. Like, I don't know anything. But anyway, that's what I've got. So subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and tell your friends. Peace.